compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
Memory keepers. Before leaving for the front, Amina's father told that she would now take on responsibilities. She worked, faced starvation and war, but her childhood was not over. When the evacuees came to Borovoye, she and the other children ran around there, which was typical of little kids. Early in the morning, you could hear a timid knock on the door in the encampment where the scientists were staying. She brought them milk, firewood, helped tidy up the place. Amina became the residents' favorite in Academy town. She loved Vladimir Ivanovich's family a lot. He admired Amina's horse riding skills and long braids. In these photos, you can see Amina-apai as a child. She is about the age of 13 to 14 in them. At this age, Amina-apai communicated with the academics. Amina Tursunbayeva dedicated her whole life to keeping every tiny fragment of history relating to time and people. They went there because it was necessary for those who wanted to preserve the science. A lot of scientists were evacuated to Borovoye. They were mainly brilliant scientists involved in natural science. A brilliant academic and scientific genius, Vladimir Vernadsky, stayed at cottage number 37. Chapter 1. Brainstorming. There are many ideas why the academics found shelter in the Borovoye encampment. First, they planned to evacuate the members of the Academician of Sciences to Tomsk, but suddenly this plan was abandoned. It is unknown whether Vernadsky, who had made expeditions to some of our towns before the revolution, put this idea forward. Perhaps the climate influenced this decision. Many historians are confident that the credit for the Soviet Union's brain center evacuation and subsequent initiation of scientific development in Kazakhstan should be given to Amina-apai. Probably in the beginning this information was kept secret and was even classified as top secret. Anyway, trains with brilliant scientists started arriving at Borovoye in July 1941. They were allowed to bring luggage weighing less than 20 kilograms. The scientists traveled by plane only to the nearest point of the Great Land, which was Tikhvino town. They came from Leningrad. After that, they had to spend many days on an exhausting railway journey to the east. Perhaps this journey was solitary and there is no information about how long it took certain people to reach their destinations. The Vernadskys traveled in sleeper cars and had a comfortable journey. Vladimir Ivanovich even took his favorite rocking chair. He felt disappointed because he had left his laboratories and said at his age he was not afraid of bomb attacks. People in Borovoye vacated the encampment and prepared cottages in preparation for their arrival. People of all ages knew that only scientists of great importance were going to Borovoye. White France curtains were gathered and hung on the windows. It was still dark and the power was turned off. There was a cup of coffee, a sandwich, and 5 or 6 editions of the book. The academic did this work every day and he has learned to save even tiny amounts of time. Even telephones were turned off and no one visited. You can imagine this process as the most intensive work was done during the interval between 7 and 12 o'clock. This work helped to relieve their sorrow caused by Information Bureau news reports, which made him world famous and secured a place in the world's history of science for Borovoye. The name of Kazakhstan Sanatorium became renowned thanks to Vladimir Ivanovich. This northern pearl inspired many other scientists to pursue numerous discoveries. They gathered in the library and resolved all the questions there. Each scientist made a contribution to it. Berg was engaged in fauna, nature, and other land. Virologist Gamalay tried to find new ways to treat tuberculosis. Local physicians told Gamal Agad the secrets of orotherapy. Literary critic Orlov wrote epic literature in Kazakh, and Amina sang for him Kozy Korpesh and Bayan Sulu. Maria Andreeva, Maxim Gorky's wife, who was the director of Moscow's House of Scientists, opened a drama hobby group for the children. Vernadsky took breaks from working on his main book to help establish a match production plant in Shchuchinsk. Amina could talk continuously about 160 famous scientists who were in the same place. She said that once the academic Vernadsky had put her on his lap, given her a slap on the back and said the girl had a healthy appetite. It was natural because there were 10 children in their family and times were difficult. Chapter 2. Splinters of Memory. There is an ebony secretary's desk similar to the one which was left in Moscow. A small part of the library and some photos of relatives are there. The sofa is under a cover. Amina-apai tried to create an atmosphere reminiscent of the one which Vernadsky worked on in his nonosphere. Vernadsky sat on these chairs. They were in the study where he worked. Vladimir Ivanovич's lifestyle was very humble. He never changed the furniture which he had bought in the 19th century. He did not have pictures or silverware. His most valuable things included a mineral collection, and the family was eager to spend money on books. The 80-year-old academic and 14-year-old Amina became friends thanks to those books. During the war, the books were sent here for the academics. The books were delivered directly from Moscow. Amina Davletovna helped carry these books and brought them to the study. A special carriage for the books and magazines was allocated to the academics. It ran constantly between Moscow and the Kazakh encampment.
Этот музей, конечно, это серьезный вклад.
This museum represents a significant contribution that was made by a patriot of this region and a wonderful person, Amina-apai. She was very zealous and established this museum from scratch. In the museum there is a room packed with books which were used by the scientists evacuated during the war.
Которыми пользовались ученые, эвакуированные в период войны.
She dedicated her life to recreating this memorial and became a person of note herself for the region. Amina Tursunbayeva was called Museum-apai. Having graduated from Technical University and the Faculty of History, she spent over 50 years working at the library where scientists conducted their research and at the encampment where the evacuated children lived. She opened the first museum, and although she retired, she continued working until she was 86. She was an amazing and unique person. There is Amina-apai's corner in another one of Vernadskys studies. Recently, Amina Tursunbayeva's daughter opened this room. Although there are not many things belonging to the academic, it is very easy to imagine him sitting at his desk and writing a letter to an outstanding scientist. It is known that Vladimir Ivanovich corresponded intensively with almost 2,500 people. Borovoye, where the roar of the battles was not heard, immediately enchanted the scientists, and it was impossible to resist the charm of this region. In August 1941, Vernadsky expressed his first impressions in a letter. It is a wonderful place. The encampment accommodates over 1,000 people. We live in a forest surrounded by a high number of lakes in granite mountain steppe. Chapter 3. Breath of War. I mainly heard from her that Vernadsky really wanted this beautiful piece of our land to serve as a resort area in the future. It is really easy to think and breathe here. Nevertheless, it was the war that was felt in the academics' conversations, that the evacuee children's games and concerts were given for the wounded, and there was a shortage of paper. The provision for scientists was at a high level under the war conditions. The shortage of paper was one of the main problems for scientists. It was their main working instrument. Andreeva also wrote about this. "I'm sorry for my microscopic writing. I wrote so much with a pencil because there is no ink." Thus, we can deduce that there is no shortage of ink too, and they mainly wrote with pencils. Here you can see an ink pot, his pen, a small glass, and a lot of thin pieces of paper. It is interesting that Vernadsky always read in the original language. He spoke 15 languages and mastered speed reading. He cut out pieces of paper from old drafts and made notes with the clean side of the paper while continuing to work on other things. He worked on a few topics simultaneously. Vernadsky's Cabinet Museum in Moscow looks exactly like the room where this great scientist worked. Incidentally, he began his career working as a keeper of the mineral collection in the museum, and only after that, he entered the world of science. There was another keeper. Princess Anna Shakovskaya was the first organizer and keeper of this museum. He knew her from her childhood and just called her Anya. She was Vernadsky's secretary. In Borovoye, he dictated his works to Anna, who saved the manuscript documents and his diaries. The scientist Ilinsky contracted an incurable disease. They say it's like a stroke. He is the first victim in our community in a foreign land. A few days ago, he sat together with us in the evening, telling us about his escape from Germany during the previous war. He was interested in everything, and although he was 84, it was difficult to tell. Recently he has played the violin. It is cold and I have noticed a dull heart pain when trying to walk in the freezing cold where the temperature is below -20 degrees for the first time. Many of them were buried in Kazakhstan. His beloved wife also found her last resting place here. The remains of Vladimir Ivanansky's wife lay here. In 1943, Natalia contracted pneumonia and passed away 2 days later. The academic could find salvation only in his work. Everything reminded him of her. They were together for 56 years, living in perfect harmony. Deeply concerned about each other, a month and a half later, Vernadsky returned to Moscow. When people lose each other at this stage, they obviously suffer a terrible blow. There is a desk, folders, a little glass with bookmarks, and a copy of Pravda showing an editorial about Nazi atrocities. It seems that time stopped when he died. On December the 24th, he left his bedroom in the morning, stumbled on the carpet and collapsed. When people ran to him, he could hardly move. Only his eyes showed that he was alive. Almost without regaining consciousness, Vladimir Ivanovich passed away on January the 6th, 1945. Epilogue. It is memory that will save humanity. Two elderly people were going down to the lake. They are Nikolai Zelinsky, wearing an academic cap, and Vladimir Vernadsky. No one can tell us what they were talking about. I think that the military operations were their main topic of conversation because it was a very important part of their lives. They could discuss the encampment which had become a second home for them or argue. Vladimir Ivanovich was confident that spontaneous natural process would ensure victory in the World War. A gazebo near the lake was one of their favorite places for reflections and conversations. If you raise your head a little and look to the right, you will see a gazebo in that area. An old gazebo was there before. Neither it or Vernadsky's cottage survived until now. The neighbouring cottage, number 36, where the library was situated, also faded into oblivion. Nevertheless, its memorial does not fade. It remains like an invisible protective cover as long as we keep it in our memories.